my job to show you that I'm worthy. I'm worthy on my own. Those are things that I wish I knew when I was younger, that I was worthy without him.
At 15 was an interesting age for me. 15 was actually a stage of my development where, well, pretty much in all kids' developments, where they're really trying to identify who they are. You know, what type of person am I going to be? Am I going to be an independent person? Am I going to be the type that wants friends, etc.? That's across the board for everyone. For me, it was very difficult because I had dealt with a trauma 5 years prior with my mother. She was killed by her boyfriend. And just that death turned my world upside down. It wasn't just about losing my mother, but it was also about losing her to violence. And then it was no longer being able to live with my mom. Then I had to go live with my grandmother. My grandmother had a different socioeconomic status. And so there were all of these things that were going on in the midst of my grief. So at the age of 15, when most kids are wanting to like make friends and be out there, I was very isolated.
So 15. So I love me, but I think I love me differently now. I'm more accepting of flaws now than I was, because you know how they're like, oh, I'm fat, all this stuff like that, and I was never fat. I was an athlete, I was active, I like to eat now. I love chicken, I still do. But I was never like fat. And I remember my first day of high school, this boy, his name was Anthony Findyson. He ain't watching this.
Definitely not the same woman I was 3 years ago. That had a lot to do with me evolving into a mother, and then also just evolving from the relationship that I was in. It wasn't, as I've healed and come into myself, I think it was sort of more or less the person, less the person, more of sort of where I was and how I even understood what relationships should be based on what I wanted at the time. And so I think in my last relationship, I think I prioritized my vision for a perfect relationship and a perfect life and expectations around that based on what I saw on TV, or at least expectations I had for myself. I prioritized that over actually being in a healthy relationship.
So if I can be honest, even at my age now, at 46, I still, although I'm confident about myself and I'm a strong woman, I have never felt comfortable with the way that I look. I don't know what it is. People tell me all the time, oh, you're so pretty, you're beautiful, but I don't feel that way. It's weird. It's the weirdest thing. I can look in the mirror and I don't see what other people see. I don't know. But on the other hand, I still just know how to walk with confidence. I don't know. It affects me, but I don't let it affect me so deeply that I can't do the things that I need to do. Be a mom, be a wife, go to school, become a registered nurse. I don't let it stop me, although I just don't see what other people see.
Worth and self-love. When I was a teen, I battled some with my appearance because I had glasses and braces. So it was like that battle, even though I thought it was cute. It was that battle. Like I didn't see other people that had glasses and braces at the same time. But I still thought it was cute.
That girl that she's not growing up with any male influence. She doesn't know what it feels like to be loved by a dad. So she's searching for love. She's searching for that. And the boys that she sees or the young men that she finds. So talk to that girl as far as
So for a girl that has not been affirmed throughout her life, it's really hard because you now have to be the brave soul. You have to be brave for yourself. You have to be strong for yourself now because other people in your life, they haven't seen the beauty in you. They haven't seen how smart you are. They haven't seen how talented you are. But you know this. You know that you have some talent. You know you have some skills. I think all of us know the things that make us who we are. But the issue is that if you're not being affirmed, you don't really know if it's right. You don't really know if it's really true. So I think you have to find some people who you really connect with, people who you know can help you, who can affirm you. So getting around others that are potentially in the same situation you're in, that maybe they weren't affirmed in their lives either. And they're also going through some hard times because of that, or some struggles with what people think are beautiful versus the way you feel. So I would say, connecting with other people would be important to do. But being strong for yourself is so important, because even if you were affirmed through your life, at some point in time, someone is going to say to you, you're not good enough for something. And when that happens, what are you going to do?
When I was 15 and when I looked in the mirror, I did not love what I saw. No, I didn't.
How did you feel about yourself?
I was just very self-conscious. I felt like I didn't look or fit in with the popular crowd. My mother was a single mother of 4, so I felt like I didn't have all the latest fashion, and I just didn't feel good about myself. I didn't really know how to take care of myself. So I just, did what I knew, but I didn't like what I saw. No.
Or now versus then, what do you see?
I see strength. I see a goddess. I see a queen. I see someone that has been through many trials, someone who has worked on himself. I see progress. I see growth. I see love. I see beauty. I see all the things that I once didn't even think existed in myself, based off of certain things from the past, down to hanging around other girls. I used to think certain girls were the prettiest girls in the world, and not thinking that I was. And I was like, well, what makes me think that way?
Right. And I think a lot of that has to do with self-love. And so I think naturally sometimes, or at least in my experience, a relationship, especially if you're proud of it, if it looks good, can be one of those things or an extension of our identity, right? I am this person's partner, and I value that aspect of my identity so much that I'm willing to compromise who I am and my worth and my self-love for purposes of being in this partnership. And so, sure, I love myself, but I think I love the idea of being in a relationship more. And so I think that imbalance in and of itself then leads to toxic relationships, right? I've been thinking more about the whole idea of toxic people and how we use that term. And I can't really say in my situation that my person was necessarily toxic, right? Or I was any less toxic, right? I think that the space that we created when we came together was toxic. But I don't think that he was toxic. When I think about it, in as much as I don't think that I was toxic, but I think that the space that we created, the partnership that we created was toxic. And a lot of that, if I'm being honest, had a lot to do with how I saw myself. I felt like I needed this relationship to really be all that I thought I was or needed to be. I was really wrapped up in the whole Black excellence thing, right?
I isolated myself, and I think that the isolation caused me to look at myself as if I was awkward. I felt awkward. I didn't feel comfortable in my skin. When I say I love myself, that, I can't even fathom the idea of love at that time, because again, I was just going through so much. There's almost a part of me that's separated from my 15-year-old self just to get through the trauma that I was dealing with. And I think that's, really important to note with any young person who's watching this, you know, if you go through something traumatic, it affects you. And it can, small things can be extremely traumatic, you know. And so, you know, I guess like if you think about violence, you know, violence that you might see in your family, abuse, sexual abuse, you know, there's so many things that occur that we just keep moving on from, and we don't realize how it affects how we feel about ourselves.
I didn't really grow up with people telling me that. I think people say it to me when I say to them. I think they took it for granted, to be honest with you. Say, oh, she must think that she's pretty. And when I say it, people are shocked. Really? You don't think you're pretty? No. You know, I don't see what you see. And then I get, oh, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful. You know, things like that. Now, when I was young in elementary school, I was teased a lot. So I was kind of awkward. Awkward. And I did get teased a lot. And as I grew up, I got the, oh, she's light-skinned, so she thinks she's this, she thinks she's that. And I don't know, I don't know if that's part of it, where
Added pressure.
Yeah, because colorism is real. And I think people don't realize what type of effect it has on someone like me who is lighter and, you know, is always looked at and thought to be, oh, she's stuck up, or she's conceited, or she thinks she's this, or she thinks she's that. And
I think I was wrapped up in that because I thought I loved myself. And so when you love yourself, you want the best for yourself at all or at any means. When really, I think self-love is experiencing this sort of sense of contentment. Like, even though you have expectation, you're also sort of content. Like, it's okay to have expectation and have a vision and like sort of want certain things for yourself. But I think part of self-love is also knowing that if none of that happens, you're still good and you're still content in that. I think similarly, when you know your worth, that becomes a little bit more easier. Like, get into that point of self-love, get into a point where you don't necessarily need those things because you know your worth, right? I think that that's how those two are connected.
So I kind of think that 15-year-old me didn't know what love was and wasn't really interested in trying to figure it out because I was still in survival mode. And that's what happens when, you know, you deal with traumas. Your body goes into this like survival rather than living. So I would say much of my childhood was exactly like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did that begin for you? Like, when did you feel a shift?
You know, no, I don't know. But he told me, I remember I got on the bus my first day of high school. I had some shorts. I thought they were the cutest shorts in the world. They were a little bit shorter and my mom let me wear them. Usually she doesn't. And I was already insecure about my thighs. And I wore these shorts on the bus. I got on. Of course, they picked Anthony up before me. And Anthony was like, dang, look at your thighs. I can fit both of my hands around those chubby thighs.
Oh, Lord.
And I never wore shorts again. I never wore shorts until my senior year of high school because I just thought my thighs were so big. I thought they were disgusting. I thought they were abnormal, you know, things like that. And it didn't help that, I don't know if this is in the Black community or whatever community, that adults kind of like sexualize you.
Yes.
For having like thighs, for having hips, from having some kind of shape. And they would make comments too. So I'm like, wow, like Anthony Finn Dyson, and now I'm getting in that church. Now I'm getting it in my family. Like, I want to hide my thighs.
Why do I feel like I'm not beautiful? Why do I feel like all these things, even though, like, you know, of course, I'm the one, oh, your hair's so long and pretty. Oh, your eyelashes are perfect. That, and they're like, till I got in my, like, I'm talking like a couple years ago, I didn't realize, oh wow, people really like pay for eyelashes and eyebrows and things like that. And I'm just sitting here like, and y'all think that makes me something better than y'all? Like, I was like, no, like, guys, like, I will chop all my hair off and let y'all know, like, this makes you not, like, what you have is what makes you beautiful. And that's what I want people like to, and girls, especially young girls, to realize what you have is what makes you beautiful. Like, not being like everyone else is what makes you beautiful. Having your own mind is what makes you beautiful. That's probably the most beautiful thing about you, is having your own mind. It's not even about the physical. Physical going to change. Physical going to change from the time you born to the time you die. But your mind, what you put in there, what you keep in there, and what you have on your own and your soul, that's certain stuff people can't take, like, without you letting them take it, in a sense.
Right.
So those are the things that I wish that, like, I knew when I was younger.
Today, I'm realizing more and more that even though I have a vision for what love looks like for me and my husband and my family, even though I know what that looks like, I'm okay with like the now, right? I don't see myself settling, and I am always trying to hold myself accountable to that, because I know that I deserve. Like, I know that what God's promised me, like, is real, and that there's no doubt in my mind that he go back on that promise. And so there's no need for me to feel the need to like compromise or deny my worth or compromise the self-love that I have, the love that I have for myself, right? Because I know, not because I'm like satisfied with everything that about sort of my where I am now, not because I don't want more, but because I'm just content, right? I'm just content. I think self-love came once I became okay with the idea of, you know, writing this thing out by myself, right? So even as a mom, like, you know, being okay with the fact that I have a kid, I'm a single mom, being okay with the fact that like life changed dramatically because of my parental status, but also because of my relationship status. And it doesn't mean I'm any less than, right? And so in as much as like who I am have changed, I'm still Brittany, just kind of like another sort of level. Perhaps even I've experienced another level of understanding myself more than anything. So that's kind of like what the evolution has been. But self-love was knowing that being single doesn't necessarily mean that I'm lonely because I have a village. It doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have what one would want in a relationship, right? Self-love is knowing that I'm single, but I'm also worthy of being in a healthy relationship, right? I'm not in a, intimate relationship, but I also know that when I am, I will have those things that my partner sort of needs and we'll build together, right? I'm not in a relationship, and I also know that I'm human and we were created to be in partnership, and so I don't have to beat myself up for desiring to have a husband, but that's okay, right? I think all of that like goes into self-love and like my arrival into it.
Are you gonna agree with them? Are you gonna kind of fall? Are you gonna go, hide because of what was said? Or are you gonna stand up for what you know is real, what you know is true, and what you believe in? So that self-belief, that self-confidence has to come from you first. No one else can give it to you.
Struggle in terms of really understanding and trying to make sure that I knew outside of what other people were saying that I was pretty. So I would say that's where I was in my teenage year, like just kind of that back and forth, like, am I pretty? Yeah, I am. Am I pretty? Yeah, I am. Like, it was like that back and forth, because you would get validation that you were pretty. I didn't really get a lot of validation that I wasn't, in terms of even just colorism in general. That was really huge. But I still would get validation that I was a pretty girl. So I feel like it was just like that push and pull, that tug of war when I was a teen.
Interestingly enough, I probably did not feel a shift really, truly, and honestly until I got in my 30s. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to discourage any young people who are listening to this. Part of the reason that it took so long for me was because there was a fear that kept me from really processing what I went through. There were people that wanted to help me and I wouldn't let them. But then there's also the fact that some people don't know how to help you. And I think that for me, because I didn't know how to ask for help, I didn't know how to receive it, it took me all the way to get to an adult, getting into therapy and things like that to really start piecing things together, and recognizing that, you know, there was a love that I didn't realize that I should have had for myself. I didn't know how to communicate that love. And it played out in my adult relationships too. You know, it's like, you know, I think about all that time and the shift really not happening until I became 30 years old. And I recognized that how fear kept me from loving fully, how wanting to be a people pleaser made me accept things that I didn't really want to, etc. So it didn't start until I was 30, but I think that the lesson I learned, and the lesson I would probably give to any young person watching this, is just don't be afraid to share your story.
So talk about teenage Brittany.
Teenage
When
Brittany.
you looked in the mirror at 15.
Teenage. I've been looking at Facebook memories like, girl, shut up. Teenage Brittany struggled with self-esteem. Teenage Brittany, it's so interesting, like when people experience me today, you know, I'm like.
So talk about the journey from there to here.
I don't even, so it's crazy because.
The evolution.
So in as much as my past relationship wasn't sort of where I was meant to stay, it was a passageway from that Brittany, y'all, and I ain't even gonna lie. Like there was, you know, I think there are levels to glow up, right? There are like stages of glow up. And so when I think of teenage Brittany, I think of Brittany who was like, you know, real low key. I think I was pretty low key, kind of social. But I struggled with like my own identity, how I looked, my body, right? I have never been skinny, but I think I came into like a better shape in adulthood. And so I didn't really like how I looked. I went through phases of like baggy clothes, cleavage, skinny eyebrows, tracks. You know what I mean? Like the whole yin yang.
I would wear capris. It's hot in North Carolina, like muggy hot. Like I ain't had no business in no capris and some jeans all year round. Yeah, and my thighs were
same journey.
Thighs way
Then
bigger now.
Back like,
Yes,
what the heck? That was my prime. I was lovely.
I should have been showing off.
Yes. Yeah.
But I was not made to feel okay about my body. So now I'm like, give it to me all. Bodysuit, short shorts, you know, jeans that fit, everything like that. So I'm like, yeah, we got to make up on time.
Right.
And like I was telling you before, I need years back of teasing for my body.
Yeah.
And they used to call me a pair of upside down scissors because I had no boobs. I had no...
You know what? Isn't that a shame what we go through?
But I know I never had, you know, my dad wasn't there, so I didn't have that coming from him, you know, affirming me being pretty or anything like that. And my mother, she just wasn't that type of person. She just wasn't a vocal person. And I do know that she dealt with colorism herself, where people would, you know, think that she was conceited or whatever.
So in that moment, I would console her first, really understand what's going on, why she feels the way she does, because throughout her life, she's definitely been told she's beautiful and pretty and things like that by the people around her. So I would try to understand, why is it now that, you know, there's this feeling of not feeling pretty or not feeling beautiful. And once I understood where that was coming from, then I'll be able to talk to her about it. For example, if it was something that she's been seeing in media, social media, whatever the case is, that, you know, a certain look is beautiful and she's not that particular look, then I will let her know that, hey, you have a mother, you have a younger sister, you have aunts, you have grandmothers, you have all these other people that look a variety of different ways, and they're all beautiful to you, right? So if they're beautiful to you, why aren't you beautiful to yourself? You come from them. You're their blood. You're part of the family. So remember that your beauty, your everything that makes you you is really based on a foundation of people that came before you. And if you believe those people, you trust those people, and you think those are strong people, then that makes you strong. That makes you beautiful. That makes you something that has never been seen before. And I think that's something important to remember.
I remember like trying to figure out, like, am I supposed to be dating? Like, am I supposed to be dating more? Because I know like my friends are dating. Like, is it because it's me? And I grew up with a dad who told me I was beautiful, y'all. Like I grew up with a dad who told me every day that I was beautiful, that he loved me, but I still like struggle with identity, which is why I like, don't beat yourself up over that kind of stuff. Like people say that it's just people who didn't grow up with father figures, and that's just not true. I think that we are flawed and vulnerable people, and naturally, especially when our brains are not developed at that age, we're gonna compare ourselves sometimes. Don't stay there, but also don't beat yourself up because you're in there in that point, right?
Kids are cruel.
They're so mean.
So talk to that girl. Right now, she's experiencing being teased for her body, but you're perfect. So talk to her. What would you say?
I would say, Jen, listen, okay? Let a cat, whoever, don't let them tell you who you are. It's okay. Because that's how he designed you. And you're beautiful, girl. You got courage. Show them off. It is what it is. A lot of people pay for what you have.
Right.
Yeah.
You want what we have.
But in terms of self-love journey, how do I feel now? I definitely have, in terms of that journey, that journey has gotten smoother in terms of my self-worth and self-love. Especially, I remember just the other day, I was telling my husband, I was like, you know what? You have a fine wife. Like, I'm just so beautiful. And I would have never said that maybe 10 years ago. Not at all. So, so definitely that has improved. And I think what led me up to that is just getting to know myself more. Like, honestly, getting to know who I was and who is Ashley outside of what anybody else has to say. Who am I? And that's what really helped me to own who I was and to see myself as beautiful and to know that I was worthy no matter what anyone else had to say. But that did take some time. A lot of journaling was put into that. A lot of meditation was put into that. A lot of prayer was put into that. And so those were some ways that I was able to build up my self-worth, is by really healing past wounds and past traumas and being able to really remain grateful for what I had and really appreciate me for who I was. And so that's how my self-love journey got started. And that's why I'm here today. And that's why I love doing this, because it is a journey. And I feel like it's a journey for anyone to get to that point where you really own you and you're okay with who you are and you love who you are.
So even with the dad who made sure I was so affirmed and loved and was my biggest fan, I struggled with whether or not I felt like I was deserving. So much so that I ended up 17, 18 years old dealing with a man who was, by my standard now, what, Brittany? A grown man, 12 years my senior, older. And I think all of that had to do with how he made me feel based on how I felt about myself. How he made me feel in conjunction with how I felt about myself, right? I think there was a compromise of self-worth and love there, because the standard and I think the behavior and just the situations I found myself in did not align with where I was in life. Kind of almost like I was living a double life. It sounds so weird because I was still going to school, still got into college, still did well in high school, obviously. Still had a good cohort of friends, but I'm dealing with this grown man who, by the way, is toxic and dealing with his own stuff. Obviously so, because why else would he be with an 18-year-old or think it's okay to entertain a relationship or what have you with a 17-year-old? Why else, right? I'm still young. My brain's not fully developed. Sure, I know right from wrong, but there was a power imbalance and I think a vulnerability factor there. And so when I think about that, sort of the evolution from high school, teenage Brittany, that relationship with that older man, I think, was not healthy, but helped me understand, now that I think about it, here, that, you know what? That's why, loving yourself and self-worth is so important, right? And so that was kind of a passageway to the glow up, because when I got to college, I realized that that's dumb. The position you put yourself in was dumb, but I still hadn't resolved the self stuff, so much so that I did find myself in situations where I was just kind of dealing with, young men, not in a relationship and dating, but just dealing with them, even being physical with them, right? Talk about boundaries that I did not have. all of that tied it into like, you know what? Yeah, I got it going on because I'm like smart and I'm like thriving professionally, but there's something else missing.
It definitely was a long journey. I would say I was about probably in my mid-20s when I really was like, you know, I want better for myself. I'm tired of being depressed. I'm tired of looking in the mirror, not liking what I see. And I just looked at myself one day and I was like, you don't need, I didn't, it looked like I didn't care about myself. So I started to watch like inspirational videos, and just talking to like older adults and basically, yeah, I everything that I've learned was self-taught. Like I just basically just watched videos and just read articles and I love to read. I read a lot of books on self-love and self-care, and I just followed what I read, and it took me to a whole different level.
I would say college. And it was after I took Black psychology and just understanding the dynamics of different Black people, our history, and everything like that. I would think that's when I had this like revelation. I started connecting with God more. I, you know, didn't try to hide what I was wearing, and I started like venturing off into like different things. And I was like, you know, I'm okay. Like, I'm kind of dope.
Right.
And then that progressed through adulthood. I would say my senior year of college. It's good. Yeah, my senior year of college when I moved here, like just being able to stand on my own and connect with so many different people who saw me. Like I didn't have to pretend. And it was kind of like cool to like start over in a new city and for people to still say the same things. So that's when I was like, oh, you know what? Okay.
I'm bomb.
I'm bomb.
Right.
Like,
And I felt like that if I could be connected to or in partnership with the man, that something else would be like filled. And so that was like a passageway. Obviously Howard, you know, was a passageway. I grew a lot in my identity as a Black woman, but I think I hadn't fully developed in like just how I saw myself as a, you know, just sort of like as a being, as a partner, as like a woman, you know, all of these things outside of just being proud to be Black, right? Howard was a passageway for me to learn about myself culturally, learn about sort of the beauty and being proud of who you are. So in as much as I love my Blackness, I don't know that I loved myself to the extent that I do now, right? Blackness was just one piece of it. Graduated from college, and I think that's when my first job, because I was like very like professionally driven, my first job, I was like bunkering down to make sure that, you know, I was like climbing this ladder. And so I love the professional Brittany. I love that person. I love the potential of me as a, you know, at the time I was working in human resources, right? I love the potential of like what I could be as a professional being. And so that's what I poured into, go hard. Like that's what I went hard into.
I think it wasn't about, now that I think about help or just saying that, oh, I need your help. It could have been as simple as, you know, I'm hurting about my mom and I don't know how to do it. I you know, I just feel really awkward in my body. You know, someone said something to me that really hurt my feelings, and not even asking for any, just saying it, sharing your story, because what will happen is that more than likely someone understands or they've been through it or whatever the case is, and that's where the healing starts. It's the holding it in that kind of really continues to affect you. Right. So I think that, you know, could I have started to shift sooner had I been more open? Yes. But I also recognize that things happen for the, you know, the way they're supposed to. But, you know, if I could offer up to any young person watching this, you do not wait. There's a lot of life that I missed out on because I just didn't know. Right. No judgment on myself, you know. I always say that Alexia got dyslexia here. But I would definitely just say, just start early.
So talk to the girl. She's looking in the mirror. between 13 and 16. She's hating what she sees. She wants to just be that popular girl. She's willing to give her body away, do whatever it takes to just feel better about herself. What would you say to her in that moment that you know now that you wish you could stop, like, before it happens?
Know yourself. You're beautiful. You're worthy. Other people's definition of beauty might not be yours. Make who you are beautiful. Make that be the standard for beauty. Is yourself when you look in the mirror every morning. What you do with your body is important. Your body is sacred. Nobody deserves it at 13 through 16. Nobody deserves it but you.